I mean, Blair, why don't you tell? I mean, sorry to put you on the spot. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
You're muted. Is that? I guess. Oh.
Yeah. Hey everyone. Sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute at first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Austin let me know that you guys were having a developer meeting today, and I work with Austin on Ampled.
Nice.
I'm sure he's told you guys all a lot about it, and I know we're gonna go into some more detail on that today, but I've been with him since kind of the beginning there, kind of helping us figure out what Ampled is, what we want to be, what we're gonna do. And I'm a long-term kind of crypto follower. I got into the Ethereum ecosystem about 4 or 5 years ago and have been trying to keep up with things where possible, but it's like getting harder and harder. So I've been doing a lot of research on the Unlock protocol, which looks super, super cool. And we're really excited to start working with you guys.
Nice. Cool. Awesome. Hey, Kelly. Hey, Henry. I see you joined.
Hello.
Hi, David. Hi, Sophia. Mauricio. Who was that?
It's like an exorcism.
Yeah. I think.
Sasha, you're gonna. I think you can mute people.
Yeah, the thing is, it's kind of weird when you. I thought you can, if you let people start the video, it also unmutes them automatically. I thought it'd be nice to let people start video, but
yeah,
that doesn't work. Okay.
Nah, sorry.
You'll be muted. You'll have to raise your hand if you want to say something, and then I'll unmute you guys.
And gals.
Or use the say something in the chat.
All right.
Okay.
Let's
getting kicked. Sorry. Bye.
Yeah. Let's make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And cool. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Let's get started. Contributor meetup number 3. We'll get better at doing these. Like we're still learning as we go, right? Like and thank you all for the familiar faces that show up every time. It's really cool to have you all here. This week we have 2 teams. I mean, we have Austin and Blair from Ampled. Fernanda wants to chat, and I think Fernanda was very noisy before, so I don't know if it's a trick. Fernanda, why don't you write something in the chat first about who you are and what you're interested in learning here. And then we have Sebastian and Jan who worked on BlockFood during the Web3 weekend, which happened 10 days ago with Protocol Labs and a couple, and actually they won the Unlock prize for best use of Unlock, which is pretty cool. And so the goal, as always, is for people to tell us what they're doing, how they're using Unlock, maybe ask questions about issues that they might be facing or a question they might have. And then maybe open up to the rest of the crowd for anyone who has questions about what's going on at Unlock. Maybe I'll do a quick demo of stuff that I'm working on. And it looks like I'm frozen. Am I frozen for everyone or just for me?
Nope.
Cool. All right. Well, maybe let's start with Sebastian and Jan.
Yeah, so
do you mind blocking everyone by default?
Yeah, I did that, but it's not. It's actually not doing that. So it's not doing it.
I was muted when I joined.
Yeah. It's I don't know what's. I unselected it for a second. But, I'm not really sure what else I can do. It's very strange. I think I'm just going to enable the waiting room, and that will not let new people come in. Okay, sorry about that, guys.
It's okay.
Zoom.
Okay, then I guess I start now. So with BlockFood, we created a decentralized reservation app in the last hackathon, where in our example, restaurants can publish their restaurants to the blockchain with the tables, and customers can create reservations for these tables. They have to put in a fee for the reservation, and when they actually attend to the reservation, they get a code to get their feedback. So to secure that the people actually will attend, because it's all in the blockchain, and all you need to pass is basically your Ether account. Maybe I can quickly go into the app if I can share my screen, then I can show you.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Currently, it's blocked to share my screen.
Sasha, can you allow Jan to share
Yeah.
screen? Hey, I think we're gonna have to block
here.
Yeah, we're gonna have to block the chat. Yeah. We need to get better at these.
Yeah.
This is
People
really
are. It's funny. Okay, I think I threw out some folks too, so hopefully we won't have any.
Good.
Who wanted to share, Sebastian or Jan?
Me.
Sorry.
First me, and then later Sebastian for the smart contract architecture.
Allow.
Wow, that's a good noise. Who has the birds?
Interesting. I guess can only make your host. Oh, I see. Sorry, 1 second here. Share screen. Okay. You should be able to share your screen.
Yeah.
Now. Okay.
Yes, now.
Awesome. Thanks, Sasha.
Thanks. Okay, so this is the app. When you go on the site, it's currently hosted on Fleek. Did a few tests yesterday. And this is a homepage, you can either, so here are the current reservations. We don't have any at the moment. That's why this list is empty. And let's start with the restaurant owner view. When you want to create a restaurant, you just click on this Manage Restaurant button. And here, currently, you can just put in the name. Later, we are planning to add some new inputs, like, for example, the fee that you have to put in. Currently, it's 0.0 Ether configured, but later we will let the restaurants choose. So let's just create a restaurant. Let's just call it Unlock.
That would be a bad restaurant. I mean, it's a scary restaurant to go to. It's called Unlock. Like, no.
Yeah. So now MetaMask pops up.
And this is on Rinkeby, right? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
We started with another, I think, with Girly, but since the locks are on Rinkeby, we changed to Rinkeby later. And now we have to wait till the transaction is confirmed. And then our new restaurant should pop up.
So you're deploying, I mean, specifically that's deploying a restaurant on chain, basically here.
Yes. So we are writing this restaurant into our smart contract.
Cool. Okay.
And now we have our newly created restaurant here.
Yeah.
This empty one here is the table view. So when we create a new table, which currently is only the input amount of chairs, let's say we have a table with 5 chairs. We do the same thing again. Maybe I pump up the gas price.
And so here you can create as many tables as you want as the restaurant. I mean, review that based on, okay, that makes sense. And these are different contracts or how, yeah, maybe you will have the architecture later, I guess.
Yeah, we have, I think in total 3 or 4 contracts that all work with each other. Sebastian is gonna show it later.
Cool, awesome.
So now we have created a table. We can go on and create another one, maybe with like 10 chairs.
talking about testnet, you mentioned Girly. Is that because you're familiar with that one, or was it the reason? I mean,
Yeah, because we have started with Girly.
Okay. Because definitely one of the questions that we have is like, should we support all of the testnets, like Ropsten, Rinkeby, Girly, all of them? I think the answer is probably yes, but it's obviously some work, so we have to make sure and make that easy in some way.
Yeah, in the end, it wasn't a big difference, but I think we had a few problems with other providers that only had the test stuff on other testnets.
Yeah. Definite question. Okay,
Yeah,
so now you
now
have 2 tables. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically everything the restaurant owner has to do. And now we can go to the reservation side. So here when we click here, we see all the all the restaurants. We did some testing. That's why there were a lot of deployed. And these are basically all restaurants with either linked to Ethereum wallets. So down here is our newly created restaurant. And if you click on it, we can first choose a date where we want to create a reservation. Currently, this function is only in the front end. We will later have to actually put it into the smart contract.
Let me ask you one question here. That interface is in theory for consumers, right? Like if I want to go to a restaurant, that's where we go. There's a list of restaurants. I can select like Japanese or Turkish or whatever that is, and then select the daytime. Okay, that makes sense. So it's the what's the name of the open table in the US side of things. Okay.
Yeah, and it should also be possible that restaurants include this in their own front end and only show their restaurant.
Their own restaurant. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've chosen a date and time, we can select a table. Let's say I want to go with 9 other people. Then we choose this one.
Yeah.
And the same procedure. We go and confirm. And now we have to pay 0.01 Ether for the lock, basically.
Cool. So here you're purchasing the membership to the lock in that case. Cool.
So first it's going to our smart contract, and then we are calling the lock.
Nice. Okay. It's going to be a lot of interesting discussions here after this, but that's great.
Yeah. So let's just buy it, or maybe. And then when we go back to the homepage, it should get updated over here when the transaction. Now
nice.
it's done.
Cool. So here, as somebody wants to have dinner, I've booked on chain through your smart contract purchasing a membership to a lock.
Yeah.
Cool.
And later, when you actually go to a restaurant, you can put in here your code here and check in to the table or to the restaurant to get your fees back.
And what does the checking do? I mean, where do I get the code? I guess.
Yeah, right now it's we don't have a function in the front end yet. We have to get it out of the smart contract. So we just take our reservation ID. We get it's all stored with bytes. That's where we have to convert it basically. And then with this bytes.
Okay, so that's the check-in part. And who's going to do that? Is the restaurant owner is going to check people in, or is it the
so we are the customer is going to do the check-in.
Okay.
And the restaurant owner is going to provide to the customer with a key.
I see. Okay.
So maybe you can just put a sheet of paper on the table with this code here.
Yeah.
And it's also programmed that only the person that purchased the reservation can also check in.
Okay.
So now we just take this key, put it in here. Start the transaction, and then also our balance
will go up again.
Should go back up when the transaction is done.
Nice.
So we are planning later to create a new lock for each restaurant, so they can configure their fees and stuff like that. But we ran into a problem on the hackathon that when we create two reservations for the same restaurant, for example, then it would only be possible to refund one.
Yes, that's yes. I see why this happened, but interesting. Okay. Cool. Makes sense.
Yeah, so now the fee is back. Normally this should also clear, but something didn't work with the event. But if we refresh, it's still there. Okay. Yeah, normally it should be gone after the check-in.
Transaction has confirmed. Yeah, it's okay. Anybody has questions in terms of like the flow here from a user perspective? No? Well, I think that's, I mean, it's obviously a hackathon, so not fully finished product, but I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's obviously makes sense for a restaurant, but you can imagine doing this for movie theaters, for concerts, maybe even. I mean, anything that you want to make sure that the people will pay and show up.
Yeah, we are also currently thinking about a new name because BlockFood is too centralized on restaurants or food stuff.
That's a good point. Yeah. Cool. So do you want to show us how it's actually happening under the hood?
Yeah, that's what Sebastian wanted to do, but I think he is he's muted right now and can't unmute.
Oh, Sasha, can you unmute Sebastian by any chance?
Yep, coming up.
And I'm gonna stop my share so Sebastian can start sharing.
In the meantime, welcome Nicole, Mendo, Chris, Joe, Ember.
We can't hear you.
I mean, I just saying welcome.
I mean Sebastian, because he was already talking.
You'll have to shout a little louder, or maybe use Jan's headset.
Yeah, you can use my headset.
Okay.
Oh, you guys are side by side.
So, hi.
Much better.
Okay. I share my screen again.
Yes.
Okay, it's visible.
Perfect. Yep.
Okay. So I go a bit in depth to the smart contracts behind the front end and how it's built. Over the past, since the hackathon, we refactored a bit the smart contracts. We built 4 smart contracts with some interfaces and so on. One is the provider, that's the restaurants. For example, you can create a lot of instances in the smart contract, and these instances can have these units here. I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor.
Yeah,
okay.
It's fine.
So the units are, for example, the tables, and the tables can have a lot of reservations, and in the reservation we implement the iPublic log interface from Unlock, where we can purchase and refund one reservation. Yeah, and this we want to implement for example, restaurants, events, or for example, doctor visits or something like that. I think there are a lot of uses or use cases. Yeah. I don't know. Do we want to see the code or?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Okay. Okay.
I mean, unless you're.
No. Of course.
Don't be shy.
We are really new to this, so I don't know if it makes sense for smart contracts. I'm more the C++ developer, so okay. We have here our smart contracts. one is the provider. Is this big enough?
Yeah. I mean, at least for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We did something like a tree structure, binary tree or tree structure in this smart contracts. So they build up on another, and you can delete it easily. So every smart contract has its own struct with the keys to the underlying contract, for example, the units. And there's some custom data saved, like the name or the table ID or the check-in ID and so on. And that's all debugging methods. With this method, we can get all the restaurants to the front end. It's a view, so it's not that gas efficient, not that gas consuming. And we can create the restaurants here. Of course, we check if it's allowed to create a restaurant, and then we push it to the list and so on. And we have two structures, one for our other smart contract for better handling. I show it after, a bit later, and this internal struct I showed before. So we don't get all data to the front end.
Yep. Cool.
Delete method. Yeah.
What is it? Where's the place where, I mean, oh, perfect. I was going to say, where do you have the unlock interfaces you can show up? So that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's here. I want to show it now. Here we did create a unlock object or variable, and we filled it with a
block address. Yeah.
Constant block address, because we didn't know how to make it more flexible. But we can talk about this after I showed the rest of the code. And the other part is right here, where we call the purchase method of the lock.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty basic. At the hackathon, we had a lot of problems with these two parameters because we didn't know how to fill them, especially the last one. Maybe you can explain what's right here on this.
Yeah, it's actually so maybe I'll mention something. So first, one thing that I really love is that you guys integrated at the smart contract level. A lot of the application that we've seen so far are integrating at the front end level, but I mean, you don't need to. You can integrate at I mean, it's an open protocol. You can integrate wherever you want. But I like that you went ahead and integrated at the smart contract level. And so if you do so, Solidity has a way to basically import the interface, which you do very well. And then when you have the address, you instantiate a new contract at the Solidity level, a new lock specifically here, and then you can call the functions directly on the lock. And so that's what you do here, which I think is great. The purchase method is maybe the most important one in the unlock ecosystem. It's where basically somebody purchases a membership, purchases an NFT. So the first argument that you pass is the key price, or it's actually, no, it's not the key price. It's the amount that you want to pay. And it needs to be at least the key price, but somebody can pay more. So we have this mechanism where somebody can make a tip. So it's like, oh, I'll pay, this thing is $1, I'll pay $1.50 because I like this very much and I want to tip the creator in that scenario. So that's why we have this first thing. The second one is what we call the beneficiary. And the beneficiary, or the recipient rather than the beneficiary, sorry. The recipient is the person who's going to get the NFT. And the reason why you pass this and we're not using the sender of the transaction is like you can definitely purchase a key for somebody else. There's actually a lot of areas inside of Unlock where that happens, but I can purchase a key for myself, but I can also purchase it for somebody else. And so having the param being customizable allows people to purchase keys for somebody else. So here you're using the sender, that's a perfectly fine way, but you can customize this and actually give that to somebody else. The third argument is one that is interesting in the context of the governance mechanism. It is what we call the refer address. It's the address that's going to get UDT. So I don't know if you guys know that, but the Unlock has a governance token called UDT that allows people to eventually vote on upgrades of the protocol and decide what we should work on, literally. And so these tokens are minted, or some tokens are minted on every transaction, and that's the third parameter, allows the creator, the person who implements the protocol, to decide who's going to get the token. So it could be themselves, it could be a friend of them, it could be the recipient of the NFT. They say, hey, you know what, I don't care about the governance myself, I'll give it to whoever is getting the NFT. It could be any address. Here you put zeros, that means that nothing is going to mint it, which is fine. It's good for all of the token holders in that case, but that's perfect. The last parameter is maybe the weirdest one. It's we call this data, and the reason why we have and to be clear, it's not used anywhere. The reason why we have this is for the hooks. So inside the smart contract, the lock, we have a hook mechanism. So basically a way for the lock smart contract owner to decide that another function is going to get called whenever purchase is called. So, and I don't think you've customized this, but you can set a system where every time purchase is called, another function, another smart contract is being called, and that call includes a lot of information, including the key price, including the recipient, but also includes the data. And the reason why we have this is that now it allows for a lot of flexibility in terms of allowing the hook to do anything it wants based on what can be in the data itself. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's two hooks. There's one on key purchase and one on key cancellation. You can say, hey, something needs to happen when the key has been canceled on another smart contract. So that's the purchase function here. Make sense?
Yeah.
One thing that I want to mention is like here you're doing this and it's great. Like you're doing purchase reservation. You could have done the other way around, where basically people would have used the purchase function on the lock and then use the hook to call a purchase reservation function.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So one of the benefits of that, of doing the other way, is like this time you could have used Unlock's frontend, which you didn't use, and it's great. But if you wanted to have used Unlock's frontend by doing the hook system this way, you would have been fine. I say this at the same time, I don't think our frontend supports customizing the hook for now. So that would have worked, but you wouldn't have been able to put special data in the data field. Make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody have a question about this pattern? I'm trying to. I know you can't speak in con chat, so I guess it's going to be a limited thing.
Yeah. Maybe should we just unmute everyone and take a risk? I feel like it seems like a safe group. Nobody else has joined.
All right, let's try. You still have the wait room, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that. Yeah.
All right. You can now unmute yourself.
Make sense on the pattern here of like having the hook. So whenever a purchase is called, a third-party function is called with the data attributes plus all of the information about the key price, the sender, and the beneficiary.
Is the hook just compatible with your front end, or?
No, the hook is not on the front end. The hook is a smart contract, right? So it's any smart contract. It's basically a function that you call on any contract whenever a purchase happens. And so the front end itself doesn't know that a hook is going to be called. It's just that the front end doesn't right now include a way to customize the data param, the 0x00 that you have here. We're going to add, it's on my to-do list to add, so that if you provide inside the paywall config a data field, it's going to be passed on the purchase function, and then it's going to be sent to the hook. Make sense?
Yeah.
So for example, I was actually chatting with some people that are interested in building some kind of actually something we did ourselves, a bonding curve. So if you want the price to go up every time somebody purchases, you would call a third-party function that would in return increase the price. So, and whenever there is a purchase, you increase the price. And so that's the way you would do this. Make sense? If you want to call a function that mints a new token for, say, I don't know, it means the NFT, but it also gives away some ERC20 to people that purchase the memberships. Like, hey, you purchase this membership, I'll give you some of, my personal tokens. That's the mechanism you would use. If you want to kind of offer, I don't know, but like call any kind of function on any kind of contract, you could do that through the hook, basically, which creates kind of this composability in the crypto space, right? One thing you could do here, I would have to check, but I think it could work, is immediately call the withdraw function on the lock, which basically takes the funds and send them back to the creator. So basically, as soon as it purchases, now the fund go to some other address. That's also possible here. You can say take the fund and put them in a Uniswap pool to deposit liquidity there, for example. Or you could take the fund and immediately turn that into another currency, right? So that's the kind of thing that you can do inside of the hook.
Oh, cool.
Cool. Nice.
Okay. Should I go on?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So after that, we need to set the key manager to our smart contract that we can refund it later from the smart contract.
Yep.
The only thing about this, it doesn't work if we didn't set the lock manager manually to the smart contract before.
Yeah.
Because we choose to pick the key of my unlock page, unlock.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll clarify this a bit as well. Locks have roles. So there's multiple addresses that can do things on the lock. So first, the person who creates the lock is the first lock manager. And lock manager is basically the highest role. They can do anything on the lock, change the price, add the hook, do a lot of things. Obviously, they can add another lock manager. And so that's what you're doing here is you created that one, but then you add the purchaser to be a lock manager when you initialize, which makes sense. Another address is the beneficiary. So it's the person who's receiving, or the address that's going to receive the funds. It can be different from the creator. So you can have, for example, a lock, multiple managers, and then the fund all go to a specific address that is different. So that's another thing. One that is important is the idea of key manager. So every NFT, every key has an owner, obviously, but can also have a manager who is different from the owner. Here that serves two use cases initially when we designed this. The first one was the idea that if I want to lend or my membership to somebody else, so not sell, but like lend, I will basically keep the key manager role to myself. So I'll remain the key manager, but then I'll transfer the ownership of the key to somebody else. I'm still the manager, so I'm still the one deciding how to transfer or cancel it. So the person who has it cannot transfer, has a utility, so can access, for example, Discord, but cannot transfer or cancel it. I'm retaining that role. So it's kind of if I want you to access my Netflix account, I'll give you access. And then when I want to watch back, I can take it back and you can't really not give it back to me. Does that make sense? Because if I transfer it fully, then you can run away with it and then I'm screwed. You've stolen my Netflix account. Here I can give it to you and then take it back whenever I want. This way I know you're honest, right? So that's one way of doing this. The other way that we're using the key manager here is with credit card purchases. And maybe that's, I was hoping I could do a demo, but maybe I'll do a demo next week. I want to make sure we have some time for Austin and Apple. But the key manager, when we purchase a credit card, the credit card processor, so in the very first case us, but eventually other companies, are keeping that key manager role. This way, if there's a chargeback on the card, so if the card transaction get reversed, we can cancel the NFT as well and get the money back from the NFT and say, hey, no, you're not supposed to steal via chargebacks. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the two of the use cases here. You're using a different use case here, and then yeah, basically you're using a different use case here. So tell what you said the key manager to be the smart contract here.
Yeah, exactly. With this and one other question is if I want the lock manager to be initially the smart contract, is the only way to initialize a new lock Or is
So-
there another way?
Yeah, so either you create the lock from that smart contract, and
Mhm.
in that case, the smart contract is going to be the manager, or
Mhm.
whoever created the lock can actually grant the key manager role. So
Okay.
any key manager can name other key managers. Makes sense?
Mhm. But that's just if I personally on the front end created the lock, then I have to do it manually.
Yes, exactly. I mean, yes, for now, yes.
Okay.
I mean, you would have to send a transaction to it, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's our refund method or function. It gets the check-in key to just refund if the right key is passed. That's in this check here. And after that, we just call the unlock, cancel, and refund method. We don't know yet if that's the right method for us because I think there's another method.
This one's
Expire
good.
and refund. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The difference between the two is like cancel and refund is like a lock manager calls that one. The other one is me, as a member, I can call it as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it for the reservation. We did some interfacing to make it better in the to use it in the front end because it's pretty complicated to integrate more than one front end. Or we didn't know a better way. But we put in this interface all the methods we need in the front end, and so we just can call the smart contract, and that's it. And I think if some other person want to integrate our smart contracts in his smart contract, then that's easy. Yeah,
cool.
Because you just need this interface, and that's it.
Nice. I mean, that's great. Let's finish with a Q&A session after we've seen Austin and the Ample people tell us about what they're building, and maybe get back to this if anyone has questions in the end. Does that work?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jan and Sebastian. That's great.
Thank you.
Austin, the floor is yours.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Could I share my screen, Sasha?
I stopped mine.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay, cool. Hi, my name is Austin. I'm a co-founder of Ampled. Ampled is it's a web platform that's kind of like a Patreon-like platform for musicians. It's not on-chain. I think like tech stack-wise, it's more of a Web 2 type platform. What makes us different is that we have formed our organization as a co-op. So we have approaching 200 people that are members of some kind, artist owners, worker owners, as well as other people supporting the organization. So the way that we are thinking about incorporating Unlock, at least initially, is to use a lock to recognize membership within an organization. Say like artist owners have a lock, worker owners have a lock that reveals certain kinds of documentation or access to owner materials or a suite of other things. So this is kind of like just a bit about the organization. Corey just launched his page. This is basically how it works. Like you pull up, you support an artist, you can support for $3 a month or whatever you want. Above that, and then once you become a supporter, you get access to anything that's put behind a paywall. So, but not always. Like he just has 2 public posts here. We also have this page, which we call our community page, which people can support the platform, similar to supporting an artist. So we have now 135 people, and then we have a bunch of posts where we update our members on different things. Some of these, if you were viewing this not logged in, you'd see some of these are just for supporters only. So yeah, the ways that we're thinking about this, and I'll share another screen here, is well, a dream that we've kind of always had and talked about, but it's really just been in the back of our mind since COVID started, was like a physical space. Our office was in New York, within the New Museum in downtown Manhattan, as part of the New Inc. Cultural Incubator. And we just, you know, in thinking about getting our own space, we have thought about, well, if we have our own physical shared workspace, social space, community space, wouldn't it be really cool to have all members have access to this space, to say, you are a co-owner of Ample, so this space belongs to you, and thinking of like, wow, it would be really interesting to actually like integrate, unlock tooling across the entire organization to say, like, you have this thing, and it allows you to do a suite of things across the website, potentially on other sites too. So like, one, access to a physical space. So this is just like a super, like the dumbest version of this that I could make, no code. One, setting up a lock made with XDAI, setting this up with Collabland, choosing XDAI, choosing NFT, and then posting the address of the lock and how many you would have to need to have access to this private channel, which I made, which basically just reveals from a data set, which can show like a new code to type in a keypad every single day. So on the other end, I just had
So maybe Austin, do you mind if I interrupt you quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing that I really love here is the no code aspect. Is like you created the lock, and you could put the lock on your website on that's great. But then without writing code, you were able to use that lock directly in Discord to give access to a physical space. And people don't necessarily saw that, but like the way this works is like you use Collabland, which is a bot similar to Sortybot that we use on Unlock, to plug so that only the people that have a certain role on a Discord server can see a channel, and then you do it by mapping the Unlock membership with the Discord role. And then once they have their role, they get access to the place where the channel in which the code for the pad gets posted on a daily basis. Does that make sense, everyone? So for me, that's kind of the mind-blowing integration. Like it's really, really cool, because that's how you would do, I mean, the easiest way of doing physical access to a space using Unlock.
And it's interesting just as a completely no code setup where, you know, it really would work with kind of like any Collabland compatible token, or like just anything. The idea is that, you know, we have a lot of kind of like membership specific documentation, and we're kind of like looking to do a few things. So like, one, have like access to private docs and using the WordPress plugin. I saw that Notion is in the pipeline, and so we do use Notion for a lot of like member and worker specific stuff. We have like a dashboard that's just for workers in Notion, and then we have a Shopify store that we're setting up. So we just like launched Totes. We have a zine that is just for members. So I think we'll likely make a storefront. One of our worker owners, his day job is at Shopify too. Nice. So we have like a little bit of help with that. And so the idea is like we could set up discounted prices for the same lock that gets you access to the Discord, that actually gets you discounts to the merch. We're going to be throwing our first shows soon this fall. I would love, just like in the same logic of having members only access to certain things, gated access to just like a form to sign up for guest list spots, or like we're just really thinking of like simple no code uses, using some of the widgets and plugins that are available, and just like using them creatively to do really interesting things. And I guess, you know, we could go further from this too and think about like, well, it'd be really cool for, this lock to be recognized on other websites, say like Catalog or Audius, other music Web3 sites, a badge, say like this person is an Ampled artist owner. Or even, we'll have elections, board elections coming up in January. It would also potentially be interesting to use it as like a mechanism for members to vote.
Yeah, that's brilliant. One of the idea, and I saw Henry nod his head, but like Decentraland, like as an artist, I might do a concert in Decentraland, and using the same membership that is on my website that allows my fans to get access. Or you mentioned a physical space for Ample. You could have an Ample in Decentraland, basically an Ample room in Decentraland, and easily integrate the same lock this time via Henry's work inside of a Decentraland physical space, I don't know, virtual space, I guess. And then people can listen to the music there, which I think is another shiny example of like, hey, now my wallet allows me to easily access content all over the web. And a same membership can actually have many, many benefits associated with this. Really like that.
Yeah, so I think like first we're thinking about ways to use it across our organization, ways that this like pass could be used on different websites, or and yeah, I think we'll be exploring like our own applications of this, and hopefully like a good like output of that would be documentation that can help other communities on board. Our community is like even like the workers that former Kickstarter, Patreon, Spotify people, a lot are very unfamiliar with crypto, but are still very tech fluent. So, there's going to be a focus on education with us too. So I think that all those experiences that we have with our community could be valuable to other communities looking to use Unlock.
100%. I think that's one of the big challenges that we have ahead of us, is like making sure that non-crypto people don't have to think too much about what they're doing. Like it needs to be simple, no seed phrase, no installing a Chrome extension, like making it really easy for non-crypto users to embrace this, while still not hiding under the carpet that it's crypto-based. Like I think this should be always clear, but also show that it can be both crypto and simple, and that's the goal.
Yeah, I think that's it for me, at least in kind of like how we're thinking about things now. Still more work to do on like fleshing out this no code code example, and probably have to like play around with some actual hardware. I know like the hardware would depend on what kind of like software for a smart lock would actually be like best allow you to do some of these things.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I know Sasha has ideas on this. He has some good friends who work at a company that actually does create physical locks. And so I mean, we're thinking about doing a hackathon at some point. It would be, I think, a cool idea as well to see how we can integrate Unlock easily there. Cool.
Or we could just build it, Austin, with you. Or you could just build it instead of the hackathon.
Yeah, I was just gonna get a Google Nest Home, and they have settings where you could just pre-program a specific code for a specific date, like with the idea of it being used for Airbnb. So like, although it would be like a pretty hacky manual way to do it, you could just pre-program like 100 codes for the next 100 days. Have a bot just reveal what the code is for those days.
Yeah. Sounds like a very quick, nice MVP solution, right? The thing that Julian mentioned was these guys that I know who are also German, but they're based in New York. They built this whole, they have a whole cloud system where you can manage users and access. They don't actually make the locks, but they make the hardware that then talks to the lock. So it's pretty cool. All you really need is like an electronic lock, and then you can integrate their system. And I think it'd be pretty cool, and maybe not even that difficult to integrate Unlock with that. So then, I think the hard part would be like, how do you have to have your wallet sort of communicate with the door reader or something like that. But you could have a whole system there. I don't know. I'm very excited about that.
No, and I think that's, I mean, that's an exciting, I definitely think the combining the physical and virtual access in one single token is really cool. Like, it's definitely something that doesn't exist right now. Like, you either have a physical key or a badge, or you have a virtual account, but you don't have a thing that actually does the two things.
Yeah, totally.
And a little bit of hype around that wouldn't hurt Ample either, you know, of like, you know, highlighting, oh, this is really cool and interesting. And, you know, and the more that we could highlight just this as like a reason to join too, is something that we're thinking about.
Yeah, the first virtual and physical member space.
I mean, yeah, I think it's brilliant. Like, there's one thing that we should have learned with the pandemic is like both of them are real in some way, right? Like they're when people say, oh, in real life, it's like, well, I mean, you've spent a year working on a computer, interacting with people via screens. This was all real. Like, this wasn't fake. So it was real, even though it was virtual. And I think basically being able to reconcile these two worlds is definitely going to be a massive opportunity for us as well. Cool. Awesome. Any question for Jan and Sebastian as well? So maybe I have one actually for you guys. So you said you worked on it after the hackathon, which is great. What's your plan?
Yeah, we look. Yeah, we just program a bit. We just try to program it a bit more in detail and try to implement more some events or also other things than restaurant reservations. And we see. We don't know yet. We are still really not into this crypto programming and something like that. We do it like 2 weeks.
That's amazing. What you've done in 2 weeks is, I mean, it's great. Like, honestly, Solidity is a whole new environment. I mean, I know you mentioned C++, or C even. It's a whole other computing platform, obviously. And so it's mind-blowing that you're able to get that far in just 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think this idea of using this for other verticals is really interesting. I think any like independent practitioner from, you know, like fitness classes, yoga studios, to like massage therapists, or anybody else that's dependent on people making reservations and showing up, could really benefit from this, right?
It would be nice to easily integrate this in some other front ends.
Actually, that's a good point. There is somebody who reached out to me a couple of weeks ago. He's a gym instructor, and he's trying to do kind of a combination of both online and offline kind of gym practice. And I mean, maybe will you be okay if I put you in touch? Because you might be interested in working with you all on that.
What? It would be great.
Cool, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Of course.
It's awesome.
Anyone else on the call that stuck around that has some questions or thoughts, comments, something awesome you saw made?
So I had a question just regarding the hooks.
Yes.
So an idea that I have, well, something that we've done in the past is we've done charity donations. So when you're purchasing sort of the video game bundle, for example, you can have some sliders which say how much of, so there could be like a 30% cut that goes to charity, and then you can choose which charities get those percentages. So I was just wondering if that's a use case that would work.
Definitely. I think that's a good use case. One of the use cases that I mentioned for the hooks was the idea of discount codes. So somebody could submit a code, and based on that code, they would get a discount. So, but that idea is like in the data. So when you send the purchase transaction, in that data field, you would put the amount that you want to give to the donation. So either a percentage or the absolute value, and then the address of the recipient of the donation. And then basically when you call this, the hook would get access to the address and the amount, and would be in charge of sending the amount and to the right address. So that's definitely a very valid use case for this.
Nice, sounds cool.
one of the things that I like about that specifically is I know for a lot of companies, when they make donations from an accounting perspective, it's hard. Like they have to say, oh, it's revenue, but then we give it away to somebody else, so it's not revenue anymore. In that scenario, I don't think that it counts as revenue because the money never sits on the lock, basically. So it's like, no, it's money that goes directly from whoever purchased the membership to the recipient, the donor, the organization, not the donor. And this way, the organization that actually doesn't make the donation, but like diverges the funds to the organization, doesn't have to take that into account. I think from an accounting perspective, it's like, no, this was paid directly to the NGO or whoever is receiving the donation. Make sense?
That's very good. It could work with revenue share as well. So
exactly. Yes.
For example, one thing that we do is when you're selling a video game and a soundtrack, quite often the musician will get a specific cut of that. And for us, that's an accounting nightmare because we have to declare that all as revenue and then we have to pay them out and that has to go through a whole process.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. You could say, hey, the hook will distribute a percentage of any purchase. So immediately one person goes to this, 2% goes there, 5% goes there, 25, like that's pretty easy to do. And you can even imagine a scenario where if you want to go all in on the DAO side of things, is like make that hook function kind of a DAO itself, so that basically people can vote on the allocation. So it's almost like the money goes, the hook straight there, and that gets distributed to the right people immediately. So that's a pretty cool scenario here.
Cool.
I think the hook is definitely one of these things that could be used a lot more. And so we're hoping that eventually people will make cool stuff. And again, like Sebastian and Jan, I'm really happy that you guys didn't use the front end. I mean, it's not like I don't like the front end, right? But it's cool to see people integrate at different levels because I feel like not enough people know that it's possible. Cool. So it's kind of the opposite of the no-code approach. It's like the very high, intensive code from the completely no-code approach to Austin is being taken, which is good. Awesome. So I think this is a good wrap up. We'll have another one in 2 weeks. We'll find a few people who want to join. If anyone was still here wants to be chatting, I think of you, Kelly, for example, Kelly, or anyone else. Please ping us and let's chat again in a few weeks. And I love the birds. I think they're coming from you, Henry, right?
That's
I
us.
think so, because I can hear them.
It's the German birds. Okay, cool. Nice. Cool. Have a good afternoon, a good evening in Europe, and a good day on the West Coast. I think at least Ember and Shooter are there.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Cheers,
Bye.
guys.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye.